right, welcome to another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching. I am a professional Scrum Master. That's my title. I'm Ryan Ripley. This gentleman here is Neil Killick, Agile Coach, Agile Methods, Agile Thinking Extraordinaire.
ATE, certified ATE.
There you go, yep. Certified ATE.
Yeah.
Nice. Agile Thinking Expert, something like that. Yeah. No, Neil's I think old school Agile is how I think of like Neil and a lot of us that we've been kicking around ideas for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you saw his story slicing video, and I'm sure there's been a lot of great comments there. We'll look into the future and see if that's true. Today, though, kind of a different topic. We're not going to be so tactical and not so much up in the product owner's business, which I think we're very product owner specific. Actually, whole team, right? And so I thought that video was fun. But Neil, you've got some great thoughts around a topic that Todd and we get asked almost in every professional Scrum Master course we teach, right? This comes up especially in the advanced class, and so we certainly have a take on it. But I'm really curious because I think you've got a way to frame this that could be even better. And so what we're going to talk about today is demonstrating the value of the Agile Coach and or Scrum Master, right? We're not saying the two roles are the same. We're just saying that there are some similar veins of value that they create. And so before you send me emails or comments about they're not the same, I agree. We're with you. But there are some similarities that I think the way that this is going to get framed could help. Is that a fair kickoff, Neil?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think this is, I guess, helpful for anyone who is tasked with, some kind of, creating an improvement culture. Sure. Someone who is a change agent, someone who is helping to support people to become better and more productive, whatever. So yeah, that's a thing. Again, I see people struggle with a lot. Is that as coaches or as Scrum Masters, we're often just kind of thrown into a situation with a team. And the team isn't necessarily on board with the idea of having a coach or a Scrum Master as well, which makes it even harder. And we're sort of, we use our experience and what have you to figure out, what we should do and how we can help the team and what have you, which is all good stuff. But the challenge is that it's not necessarily aligned with what the people who are paying us actually want us to do or want to achieve. Or even if it is, or even if it feels like it is right now, without having anything kind of tangible to actually sort of look back on and say this was the value we created, and I've seen this happen where it sort of 6 months down the line and suddenly someone's boss is saying to them, what's the value of the coach? What are they doing? And it's kind of like all that stuff you've been doing over those 6 months is going to be forgotten a little bit, right? So and now it's like, well, can you demonstrate the value of what you've done? And it's like, how do I retrospectively demonstrate the value of what I've done? It's it's really, really tough. So so I suppose this technique is a way of, I suppose, creating a bit of collective ownership around what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish from an improvement perspective, and then actually having sort of tangible benefits and tangible progress, and I suppose along the way something that you're recording, you're documenting, if you like, as you go. So it gives you something to look back on and say, this was value that I brought to the table. Rather than having to just kind of just say, I'll remember that day 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So it starts with the premise, I suppose, of if I think about as an Agile coach or a Scrum Master, and let's put aside delivery for a moment. So let's just think about improvement, so operational improvement. Okay, so let's say, for example, that the team wants to improve its speed to market with a particular product, or there is a desire. There is a broader desire to improve speed to market for a particular product. So as a coach here, what I can do is, so I can kind of create an improvement agenda around that. So, we can call it improve speed to market for this product without negatively affecting quality or customer satisfaction. Okay, so really key thing to point out here is if we're talking about some kind of operational improvement, we need to make sure we've got like counterbalances there, because if we just focus on speed, we can have negative consequences. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the landscape of what we're doing. So I suppose broadly speaking, so there's some kind of improvement agenda. So as a coach, I've noticed something, or someone has told me some improvement that needs to happen. So there's an improvement agenda that gets established. So then what do we do with that? So as you know, what we often see is that improvement agendas, people don't, if they don't feel like they need to participate in that or actually do something around this improvement, they won't do that. Like if they feel like what they're actually being measured on is the delivery of the thing they're doing, then they're not necessarily going to be willing, active participants in this improvement. Right. So what we need to do at this point is what I call establish an imperative. Okay, there needs to be a compelling reason why people need to participate in this improvement. So, and I'll go into more in detail about that in a second. So we establish an imperative. So let's assume we've done that. So everyone is on board and realizes that they have no choice but to participate in this improvement. It's expected of them. So then the next thing is, well, we now need to support people in how they can accomplish that. So they're not necessarily equipped to do that, knowledge-wise or skills-wise or experience-wise, or they might not have the tool set to be able to do that, or there might be things in the culture and the environment that don't allow them to do that. So this is where coaching can help. So we can coach and embed these ideas and really help to bring them to life and create this improvement. And then we need to inspect. We need to look at what we've actually done and how well it's worked. And maybe we can, measure the sentiment of the teams and, really sort of observe what we've done and how well it's worked. Sure. And then that comes back and feeds back into the improvement agenda. So that's the broad cycle. Now, in terms of actually now establishing some sort of concrete value in this. So when we talk about this establishing imperative, so one technique which is very, very popular nowadays for establishing imperatives, particularly around product development, is a thing called OKRs. So objectives and key results. So we talk about a particular project or a particular product we're building. We say, well, what's the objective? What are we actually trying to achieve from a sort of business outcome perspective? And then we apply key results. So we actually apply measures that are going to tell us that we're being successful with that product. So you can actually apply this same technique with operational improvements. And what that does is it actually puts on the table that this is an important piece of work. It's actually part of our work. If we're defining our quarterly goals and what have you, our quarter of work using OKRs, there's no good having objectives all around products and deliverables and then having nothing around operational improvement, but then expecting people to actually improve operationally. It ain't going to happen, because we have said actually what we really care about is that you deliver X, Y, and Z. We don't actually, you can get away with not making these improvements as long as you deliver your stuff. So that won't cut it. So to create an imperative, we've got to say this is an important part of your work. So creating an OKR is one way of doing that. So so what I would do here is create an OKR. So the objective being improve speed to market for product X without negatively affecting quality or customer satisfaction. That's our objective. Now we need to establish some key results for that, right? So, well, it might be, so for example, releasing fortnightly and reducing escape defects to...
All right, this fancy Queen's English. What's a fortnight, Neil? Come on. Come on.
2 weekly.
All right, 2 weekly. Got it. Thank you. Fortnight. Got it.
No worries. Yeah. And we won't even get to the difference between bi-weekly and 2 weekly, because then that gets really confusing.
Got it.
Yeah. So as an example, right? So we want to apply some real tangible measures to what we mean by improving speed to market. So if we're only releasing, if currently our plan with the product is to release in about 6 months' time, then we can't improve speed to market without actually releasing earlier than that. So the first key result might be that we actually, release, say, every 2 weeks or just a couple of times in the interim. And also, again, we need to have that countermeasure, because what we don't want to do is people to optimize for, well, let's just release something, let's get it out the door. It's like we've got to make sure that we don't have any negative consequences on our, for example, customer satisfaction and the quality of the product. So we might also look at, in our key results, defects not going up, customer satisfaction not going down, right? So we apply, so 2 or 3 key results onto this objective. This now becomes part of everyone's work.
Yep.
So then the next step is, well, what do we actually do? Like, okay, so the result of us releasing more frequently, that's great, but what do we actually need to do? So this is where I apply so I extend the OKR to what we call OKRAs. So where you add in activities into the OKR world. So we've got our OKRs. Now what we can do is look at, in terms of each of the teams and each of the groups, what are the activities that we need to do in order to make those results happen? And that's going to differ depending on who you are. Right. And so if you're a technical team member or developer, you might have to build a CI/CD pipeline in order, because we don't have that right now, so we can't release frequently because we don't have that pipeline set up. For a coach, you might be assisting the team with that, or with automated testing. You might be helping the product owner to communicate, with their stakeholders, that there's going to be a slowdown of feature development or a pause on feature development while we address this ability to release more frequently, etc. So there's a bunch of activities, from the leaders or managers' point of view. They need to obviously prioritize this improvement agenda. They need to communicate it. They need to protect the team from other work. So it's no good saying we need you to do this improvement imperative, but we also need you to carry on delivering all your other stuff. We need to create some time and space for a bit of a sort of task force to come together and make this happen. So managers have responsibility to do that. So what we can do, again, collaboratively, and we can have a single artifact that shows what's going on and what the activities of each of the different groups, which are all needed in order to achieve this result, and they're all complementary. They're not going to be in conflict with each other as well, which is a really key thing we need to make sure. So we can now work as a group. We all have an imperative to improve the speed to market. We all have defined what we all need to do to help each other to be able to do that. So now we've got concrete artifacts. We've got key results, which means, so by the way, these key results, if we don't already have a KPI measuring that thing, then the first thing we need to do is to create that. So, if, for example, we say, well, we don't want to negatively impact defects, or we don't want to negatively impact customer satisfaction, right, but we're not actually measuring those things, then right, the first thing we need to do is to measure those things. Yep. So this is where, and this is a little bit of a differentiator here between a KPI and an OKR. We often talk about these things as competing or whatever, but actually, for me, a KPI, a key performance indicator, is what are the things that we care about, and if we care about those things, then we should have a measure of those things. We want to. It's kind of like your heartbeat, right? Your heart rate, or your blood pressure, right? It's not like we're trying to increase it or decrease it necessarily, but we want to know what it is because we care about that thing. Right. So you would have a KPI around customer satisfaction because we care about it, or you have a KPI around escape defects because we care about it. So we measure those things and we say, okay, well, if those things are at a level that we're happy with, then that's all good. We carry on measuring it, but we don't do any particular imperative around it. Where we've got something that isn't good, so for example, our customer satisfaction is terrible, then we might want to create an improvement imperative around improving customer satisfaction. And this is, again, where we can create an OKRA and create that operational improvement objective, and then get everyone, all of the different key activities in place in terms of what everyone's going to do to make this happen. You've got your measures in place. So now you can go off and do this stuff and then see the effect on the KPIs and see if you've actually met your key results that you're aiming for this improvement imperative. So this act of being the champion and initiating that as a coach, and recording it and facilitating it and helping everyone with the overall actual implementation of the OKRA, as well as the work that's needed to be done for the explicit improvement. This is all tangible, measurable value that you've now created, because you can now say, as a company or as a team, we needed to improve quality, or we needed to improve customer satisfaction. So I helped the team create this OKRA. These are the things we all did. I facilitated all these groups to do this. And then the result of that was that quality has improved. Customer satisfaction has gone from here to here. Now, that doesn't mean that you've directly caused that, but you are showing that were a significant contributor and champion of that thing happening. So that's basically the premise.
Yeah, and I like taking some of these. Like, you can actually take escape defect, for example, and show over time trends and how much of our capacity is committed to that, what the cost of that capacity is. And for the next 12 months, since we made this improvement, we've brought X dollars back into new development instead of defect support. And you can really get pretty interesting with actually justifying your role. I think very quickly, this helps. What I like, you're using a term here, that the improvement imperative. Yeah. And I think I'm going to start talking about that in the leadership class, like basically telling the leaders, if you don't set this imperative of improvement, why would you ever expect your teams to improve? And I think that's so important, that from a leadership perspective, if you don't set that, it's not going to happen. And I think you're 100%. You're 100% right. OKRs are typically set at a delivery level. Yeah, and we're going to deliver this in this quarter, and this and this and this. Yeah. So say goodbye to improvement, because we're just going to cut the corner and do whatever we need to do. To ship, right? We're too busy to improve, right? We'll always prioritize, we've got to get this release out, or we've got this important release meeting, or whatever it might be. That will always be prioritized over the operational improvement. So until we actually embed operational improvements as things that are actually the work, they're not like something we do when we've got a bit of capacity. They're actually part of our work. And yes, that needs leaders, the leaders to be driving that, not the coaches. So the coaches need to be supporting and facilitating an agreed improvement imperative, not driving it themselves, because they will just hit brick wall after brick wall. And what's even worse is that it can get kind of gaslighted a little bit, whereby it feels like they have management support for something, and then later on, when that thing people are rebelling against, or it didn't, feels like it didn't really work, or there's a perception that it didn't work, the coaches then are then kind of easy targets. You're supposed to be making the teams improve. Why didn't this happen? Blah 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 blah. So being very, very explicit and actually creating these artifacts and helping our managers in doing this stuff, and saying, look, this is what's going to be needed in order for this to happen, rather than just going off and just trying to use our expertise and experience as coaches, which can feel good and help in the short term. We can feel like we're adding loads and loads of value over months and months and months. And then one fine day, someone turns around to you and says, what value have you delivered? And you say, oh, well, I did this and this, and the team, started doing these ceremonies, and, they improved their velocity, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but what's the result of that? Like, what's the actual tangible result of that? And then we're really struggling. So if we start from
anytime when we sit back and we actually have a conversation with ourselves and say, what am I going to coach the team on this week? Make sure that actually the things that you are planning to do connect to a real objective that you know about, that is somewhere in the business or the team objectives, and you have a conversation with whichever managers you need to have a conversation with to make this really transparent that this thing needs to improve. This has been recognized as a thing that needs to improve. Yeah. So I'm doing these activities here as an attempt to improve this thing. That's the first step, beyond even these OKRA stuff, creating that traceability, that connection through to your day-to-day activities. Otherwise, we have a tendency to just go off and go, oh, well, I think what the team needs is they need to start doing TDD, right? And I'm going to now go, I'm now going to get this, I'm going to get obsessed about the team. Oh, they're not doing TDD, or they're not writing unit tests. So I'm noticing these gaps in what they're doing, and I'm prioritizing that as a thing that I'm going to coach, and that's very, very dangerous, choppy waters. So much better to tie in whatever you're doing to a real, transparent improvement initiative, and then you are documenting your value. You are creating accountability around the things I'm doing and the things I'm trying. This didn't work, this worked, blah, blah, blah. And I'm measuring the outcome. So, like I mentioned that, make sure that there are KPIs, it only needs to be 3 or 4, but the things that the business cares about, right? That people talk about on a day-to-day basis, those things, make sure we've got some kind of measure for that, so that we can attach improvement agendas and imperatives around it, and we can measure the outcome of that improvement imperative as well.
Yeah, I think this is critical. It's also, I think this issue is, and I'm not 100% on this, but I have a hunch that this is why Ken Schwaber created evidence-based management.
Yeah,
I think he realized that there were areas in the market and areas in delivery, because a lot of things you're talking about, time to market, throughput, all of these things are in this kind of time to market area. In EBM, we've got ability to innovate. So there's context switching, but you don't know until you start measuring.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's your big comment. We need the baseline to actually figure out the actions that we take as a coach. Do they move the needle? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then perhaps we had our own ideas in our head, like your TDD example, which, by the way, great practice.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But if you don't have a need there, then you're right. Like you said, you're in some very choppy waters. But whether it's OKRs or KPIs or evidence-based management or whatever of course, I have my preferences. You have yours, and measure, find the trends. And then what I have also found is useful, Neil, and maybe I'd imagine you'll agree with this as well. Ask the team what makes delivery so difficult.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
Try to figure out, are there some really big ideas here? And the thing I like to do here, your improvement imperative is such a great phrase. We should be taking that, like a retrospective should be a part of that discussion. Should be what's the most important thing to improve in the way that we work, and how do we operationally, right? And we take that imperative that the team comes up with, and as a Scrum Master, I should be taking that to management and leadership and advocating for this to be elevated.
Well, or even, well, I should be able to bring up, hey, here is the current improvement imperative.
Yeah.
So what can we do to get better at that thing? Yep. And that's that's a brilliant thing. If everyone is looking on singing from the same hymn sheet and looking at the same thing, that's quite powerful now, because it's not it takes away this them and us problem with improvement, where managers sort of talk about the teams need to improve, rather than we need to get better at quality, or we need to get better with our customer satisfaction. So let's make it we, and then we all have our activities. The managers need to be saying, what are we doing to improve customer satisfaction? What are we doing to support the teams, but what are we doing ourselves? It's another point about this, by the way, is that on the one hand, absolutely. So measuring impact is very, very important. But what I see a lot as well is that, again, sometimes teams and Scrum Masters and coaches take metrics like almost on face value and just say, we need some metrics. and they'll just get a bunch of metrics and start measuring stuff. And then it's like, well, hang on, but what are we doing? Okay, so we're measuring cycle time. That's great, but what are we doing with that? What action are we taking from that? What are we using it for? And there is no answer to that. So what's really important as well is that much better to sort of say, well, if we're trying to improve, say, our quality practices, as an example, what are 2 or 3 things we can measure that help us gauge, the quality of what we're producing, and then actually use that rather than just measure stuff and then say, well, we're measuring all these things, so we're, it's in of itself isn't really useful. Whereas it's much better to start with it's much better to only measure 2 or 3 things, but attached to an actual real improvement that you're trying to make, rather than measure 20 things and not have that.
Yeah, there should be a hypothesis tied to what the data we're collecting, right? We have a hunch that something's wrong here. Here's the data that we're looking at. Here's the KPIs we're going to use to make sure we aren't breaking our system. I think that's a really important, kind of like safety tip there. I think the last thing I would try to kind of close the feedback loop on this, celebrate these wins in the sprint review. Right? Go to sprint review and say, look, we've got these 3 slices of awesome value delivered. And by the way, operationally, our cycle time is improved without a decrease in quality. And what this has bought us is that we don't have to make that hire that we thought we were going to have to make. Oh, and by the way, we're getting some capacity back. So our sprints are it's less cost per slice. We're not going to have to add head count. And by the way, this is what I'm going to continue coaching, and the team's going to continue working on, so that we can maintain that success. And if you're socializing that, no one's going to ask you, so what exactly do you do here? Right? It won't be a topic.
It's such a massive point. Sprint reviews, they're always just demos of what the team has done in the sprint. The team never ever talks about those kind of what are we doing to improve operationally. And like you say, those success stories, because if you, for example, improve your improve your cycle time, or you reduce defects or whatever, that has an impact on your team capacity to create more value for the business. And you can actually articulate that, and you can put numbers on it. Even you can say, we now have 20% more capacity in our team. That actually, based on the sort of average value of the product features we're delivering, that equates to X amount of money. Don't be shy in celebrating those operational improvements, and then that implicitly shows the value of the coach. The coach can sit back in the corner of the room, watch this stuff happening, and their value is being highlighted without having to explicitly say anything. Because you would never have done that if you had not coached them in those ways and helped them establish those metrics and everything else.
Exactly. I agree with you. I think the sprint review, I think product owners and scrum masters and agile coaches are wasting a great opportunity to really have a great conversation with people. I think, working in this way, Neil, it's got to be a sign of great stewardship of dollars you're being trusted with. And that's got to build trust, right? So if you treat every 2 week, every fortnight that you're working as, we have just given you the money to fund your team for 2 weeks. Now justify why we should give you another 2 weeks. If you have that mentality, your sprint review is going to be a lot more effective, because you're now really thinking about, well, this thing that's probably going to take us 2 months, is it actually worthwhile for us to spend 2 months on that, rather than just sort of pat ourselves on the back for saying it's only going to be 2 months away. Really, that mindset of this is our money we're spending is a powerful way to get you thinking and applying those constraints to how you do your work. I had a boss, and then we'll wrap up with this, because I know people are like, you guys, 30 minutes is too long. I hope people are getting value out of this, but a boss would always tell me, and this was not a malicious statement. It sounds like it could be, but he'd say, Ryan, we all earn the right to come back into the office each and every day. And I think that mindset, he didn't want us to play scared. He wanted us to make sure that our time was being spent in the right places. We weren't sitting in meetings that were not valuable, that we were working on ways to bring value back to the company, so that you never had to justify why you were there. And I think that's just such a good mentality. Evidence-based management can help you do that. OKRs, KPIs, and then improve and demonstrate it and use those sprint reviews to use Neil's technique here. I think you're going to find that these events go a lot better. Your teams improve. There's a lot of energy around your work. And maybe the question about, so what does an Agile coach actually do? Maybe that question goes away as you socialize these ideas, right?
Absolutely. Yep. That sort of coaching value cycle, it's really 4 steps: establish an improvement agenda, establish an imperative, coach and embed, and then inspect. And then that feeds back into what you do next. And really those 4 things as a coach from again, if you put aside the delivery bit, because that's always going to be, yes, we're delivering stuff. But in terms of the things we're trying to improve, just thinking about that cycle and how you actually create artifacts and create that imperative and all those things can be a good starting point.
Yeah, Neil, could not agree more. I really appreciate you walking us through this and allowing me to interject here and there. I think it's just such a great mentality to take into a team that I hope a lot of people got a lot out of that. And I hope they start doing this. There's so many good opportunities to demonstrate value. It's not just delivery, it's improvement and all sorts of other great things. So Neil, just thank you so much. I appreciate you giving up part of your morning to bring these great topics and ideas to the viewers.
No problem. Pleasure, Ryan. Thanks a lot.
All right, everybody. That's another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching. Hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss the videos we drop on the YouTube channel. Check out the socials. We've been actively stirring people up on LinkedIn lately. I'm sure you'll get a kick out of that, along with some other things we've been doing on Twitter and Facebook, like going live. So we've been doing that a lot lately, too. Sure to check out the videos that just popped up. We're sure that you're going to like those just as much. Well, at least the YouTube algorithm thinks you will, and we hope that's true as well. Leave us your comments below. Let us know what you think about these topics, these longer form videos. Are you using some of these techniques in your own Scrum and Agile practices? Let us know. We'd love to see your questions, your comments. Try this out. Come back and let us know if it worked. And hopefully things played out exactly as we laid out. But if not, let us know. We'd love to hear it. But yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. We hope, again, let us know about the value in the comments. And we'll bring you another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching next week. Cheers, everybody.